Welcome, Dr. Erin Joyce, to Anti-Aging Uncensored. I am so happy that you're here with us today.
Thank you so much, Jill. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, this is a very timely topic. It's been timely for all of 2020 and now for 2021. And I think that since the pandemic, I've seen, statistics report that 4 in 10, I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than that, are feeling some kind of anxiety or depression. Does this align with what you've been seeing?
Yes, absolutely. This is obviously a huge stressor, and it's affecting kind of, the trickle down effects are many. And so, and it's, there's the anxiety about, one's health and loved one's health. And then there's also just all of the changes with work and family, with, if you have children, with school. There's so much. It really has affected every aspect of life.
Yes. So why don't you give the listeners a background on yourself? So as we dive into the next thing, they can sort of understand the context of where you are and how you're helping people.
Yes. Okay. So I am a licensed clinical psychologist in private practice in the Los Angeles area. And I work with adults, with both individuals and with couples as well. And, mostly I see individuals that are dealing with stress and anxiety and depression and trauma, relationship issues, adjusting to major, life transitions and loss. So
you've been busy.
Yeah. Yes. I've definitely been busy. Yes.
So yes. I think it would be really helpful is, we start to throw words together. We say like depression and anxiety and stress. And so I'd love if we could just spend a moment talking about sort of, for lack of a better word, the definition of anxiety and stress, what the differences are, what's happening to our bodies, things like that. So if we sort of separate those out.
Yeah. So, and there can be overlap for sure with, like with anxiety and stress. Anxiety, I mean, it's definitely a feeling that is, can be both physical, like physiological, and also there's that, mental part of it, or there's that emotional part of it, which is, just feeling uneasy and nervous. So, kind of physiologically, there's, a host of different symptoms, like, kind of butterflies in the stomach, heart palpitations, kind of quicker breathing, sweating,
all those things.
That, and then there's, also just the feeling of, like something is wrong, and
gloom and doom.
Yeah, gloom and doom. And also, it's really this anticipation of like something bad is going to happen, or like some sort of like worrying about something, in the future, some sort of future threat. So, so it's really hard to feel at ease.
And on our earlier discussion that we had offline, you talked about it being there's a benefit to our anxiety.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's what we're, kind of from a, evolutionary perspective, we're, it's like, it helps us survive and keeps us safe. We have this kind of built-in like alarm system, so to speak, that, when there's potential danger around us, we, activate, and the fight or flight response is triggered. And so, we're able to avoid, certain, potential danger. It also can motivate us too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It can motivate us, having that anxiety of, like before, like a test or something, or like a big, like a job presentation. If we have a little bit of like, thinking ahead and, really thinking about, okay, how's this going to go? Maybe worrying about, how am I going to do that helps motivate us to prepare. And,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are some benefits to our anxiety, ladies.
Yes.
And so I've always thought that sort of stress leads to some anxiety. Is that, or is stress such a bad thing?
Right. I mean, I think it's actually kind of similar to, anxiety. Having a little bit of stress, I think, is really normal. And it also can, you know, again, I think kind of, motivate us and keep us going.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think it's just kind of an inevitable part of life.
Right.
Anything new that happens, is technically, even if it's a positive thing, is considered a stressor because we have to adapt.
Right.
So, but the problem was when stress gets to, to be too much, there are too many, it's just too much for us to handle. And then that can, that's when it can create anxiety and begin to affect our mood. And we feel, some like symptoms of depression and overwhelm.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to depression, which it is a category that I know has many levels to it, and people have developed depression over this time, that it isn't something maybe they're born with. Maybe you can do a little definition of it and help us sort of understand the varying degrees.
Yes. So there are kind of two like cardinal symptoms that define, true depression. And it's it's a change in mood, like depressed mood, sad mood. And then there's also kind of a loss of interest in things that we normally enjoy doing. And that's called anhedonia. So we just, aren't excited or aren't interested in doing the things that we used to do. So if one of those are present along with, some other symptoms, that's typically a sign that, depression is happening. And, some of the other symptoms are, changes in eating, like either increased appetite or decreased appetite, changes in sleep, sleeping less or sleeping more, change in energy level, typically lower energy level, feeling kind of slowed down or kind of keyed up. And in more extreme cases, thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore, thoughts of, suicide and death. And so that obviously is when it, treatment becomes really, yes. And so, within this kind of with these symptoms, what we look at, as far as severity of depression to define that, it's, how many symptoms are there, and also how much are they kind of persisting? Like, are they really persistent and not really going away?
Or is this just, a immediate reaction to something, like something more temporary?
Yes. Right. And it passes. And also we want to look at like, how much are these symptoms interfering with like functioning? Like, does it make it hard to, obviously, hard to get out of bed and go to work, or, or go online to work, or, or kind of take care of the daily responsibilities? That's really important to look at.
Because depression can be debilitating.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And there's I remember myself trying to explain it to someone because it's something that I've dealt with. And I described it as like, so they could understand that it wasn't a snap out of it. Like, why can't you go run around the block and feel better? Why can't you go, go to the Color Me Mind store and paint some pottery and feel better, or whatever, And for me, I was trying to describe it as like, can you just will a headache away? Like, it's a cloud that doesn't leave, even with the Tylenol sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I always say if it were that easy just to kind of, snap out of it, it's like, I wouldn't have a job as a therapist, because
we don't want to do that to you, but
no, I would happily give up my job to get rid of depression. But because it is so debilitating.
Well, there's a lot of promise in this area with new treatments and things like that. But why don't we shift the conversation to to what is going on when people are experiencing these types of things, I would say more severe anxiety, depression, what sort of resources are out there? So there's the professional resources.
Yes.
Why don't we start with that and how people are getting access to those when they don't have them, when they typically would say, I don't need anyone, I'm fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think fortunately, there are different kind of avenues to access these resources. I think, one is to go through like a primary care doctor, or any other sort of, physician. They could probably, point you towards some referrals.
And how are, without a lot of in person that was happening, and I know that we're praying things are going to start lifting here again soon, but like without that, how are people getting that treatment?
So it is, mostly, virtual, remote over video.
So they're doing telepsychology and psychiatry?
Yes, absolutely. And the good news is that actually, even before the pandemic, we were doing this. I was seeing, some of my clients over video. The field was kind of, developing and actually with great promise that, shown to be as helpful as in-person therapy for most people. Obviously, there's some people that, maybe with more severe mental health issues or their constraints, that in-person is better. But yes, for most people, virtual video does work, and it's convenient. It takes away the barrier of of distance, and so it is more accessible that way, which is
so literally getting a referral from your primary care or calling your insurance company.
Yes.
What resources are out there. And then if you're under a what's it called? Oh, a PPO. If you have a PPO plan, you could reach out directly. If through an HMO, you'd probably get some sort of referral.
Yes.
To them. Now, sorry to get so basic, everyone, but I think it's just really important to say, these are steps to get help.
Yes, absolutely. And I think also, more and more, or a lot of providers are out of network, not a network with any insurance company.
Right.
So, I think going online and searching, luckily there are some good, resources like Psychology Today. I think it's the most popular, therapist database. I'm on there. I had
no idea.
Yes. So you can, and it's nice that you can search by, your location, and also by, specialty, kind of narrow down what you're looking for. So,
So, and for those that are not, maybe at the extreme, or they're not sure, of the extreme of what's going on with them, but they know that something's wrong. They know that inside their heart aches, or they're feeling lonely. I'm sure similar things are going on with children, a little bit of different, but what other resources are there out there? I've been seeing commercials with Michael Phelps and different resources out there that are connecting people.
Yes, these these app-based therapy services. So like, I think BetterHelp, and I know
it's called Talkspace.
Talkspace, that's it. Yes. So I think this is all great, because I think it's just just making it more accessible. And I think with the more app-based ones, I think it's even there have been fewer barriers. I think it's kind of, you can contact them. Whenever. And, and I think it's also, I think it's good quality care that they're able to get. And there's even, an incredible chat bot. I say incredible. It's really, it's more for superficial. I'm using my own terms, by the way, superficial depression, that maybe isn't, at clinical level. That is, people are able to sort of have sort of a check-in, a daily check-in. I think it's called Woebot, WOEBOT. So there's kind of interesting things that
people who are innovators are creating these solutions that maybe will help someone at different levels. So what are some of the symptoms that you're seeing the most of from people during this time?
So I think seeing a lot of that anhedonia that I mentioned of just like not really feeling, getting much joy out of life, like feeling pretty kind of
Apathetic?
bored, apathetic. Yes, apathetic. It's like, just kind of, all right, this is getting old, not much to do here, can only watch so many, Netflix shows in one's free time, and just kind of, getting sick of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and what's sort of going on, like, especially women who, families got children and they're trying to still manage all of this. Are you finding that they're sort of coping differently, or that they're just powering through, or are they closing down?
I mean, I think all of the above, but I think, I think it's the ones that, that are kind of the closing down, the shutting down. That's a sign that it's, that, that there does need to be, more of, intervention. Cause it's getting to be too much. I mean, we all only have so much capacity for stress as human beings. And, going through this pandemic, it's kind of raising all of our baseline stress level is higher than it normally would be. So then you pile on regular stressors and then additional stressors, and it's really a recipe for for overwhelm and that's shutting down.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the worst. It's the worst because it just it makes you just. I mean, I don't want to say not want to go on, but not want to go on in your day, and people around you can sort of feel it. What So what advice would you give to people that let's just start with anxiety? And anxiety for me has been sort of this heart palpitation, sometimes some shortness of breath, and things like that. Are there things that you advise your patients that help them in coping with these things?
Yes, absolutely. Fortunately, we have a lot of coping strategies, and especially for anxiety. So, with the physical part of it, deep breathing is kind of a really, quick and somewhat easy. It's always there, always accessible, our breathing. And so really trying to focus on, okay, can I just focus in on my breathing and trying to slow down my breathing, deepen my breath, and that, that kind of signals to the brain, okay, calming down here, everything's okay. And then so hopefully, the rest of the, kind of the body will follow suit, like the heart rate will start to slow down.
So almost trying to sort of stop it in its tracks and bring yourself back to your breath, which is what I think most people struggle with in meditation. But I think this practice is so important. Even in these moments, it doesn't have to be a sit down of, cross legs and meditation, right?
No, not at all. Right. It can be right. Standing in line at the grocery store or, wherever, just kind of as needed. And I think, I think also doing, kind of just tuning into your breath and trying to, focus on regulating your breath just throughout the day, especially at times, not necessarily when you're feeling, anxious or stressed, as just to almost kind of as a like preventative measure, just to, if we're kind of feeling more regulated and taking that time to just kind of even just take a mental break from, all the stress for, things to do, we're always thinking about, that can really help it, setting us up to better manage stress.
Absolutely. So, are there other things like, do you suggest, is workout important? Is raising your heart rate important throughout the day? What are things that, I call them rituals. It's like what daily rituals, and I think the breathing is incredible anytime, anywhere. But what other things might you suggest?
Yeah, I think that word ritual is a good one, because I think it is like ritual, routine. So it's, I mean, it's things like, right. If exercise is something, I mean, we know that exercise has been shown to, help with depression and mood and, stress and all that. So, exercise, it could be, yoga also, I think is a great form of exercise, because it also has the meditation component there, or kind of mindfulness of our breath and our, movement.
That's a good one. I sometimes forget about yoga.
Yeah. Also journaling, just kind of writing, taking some time to write things down.
Got it.
Anything that,
less caffeine.
Right. Less caffeine can be helpful, or some herbal tea, or, I mean, diet, I think for sure is also a way to, help with mental health,
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, really trying to eat, I think regularly helps, again, that routine, aspect, and eating foods that are kind of make you feel good, that are nourishing. And also, I think I'm an advocate of kind of, most things in moderation. So also,
right.
Also listening to your body, knowing when, okay, I kind of I feel like something sweet, or I feel like a treat, and allowing yourself to have that without guilt, but then also really trying to, kind of.
Yeah. I think one of the things that came to mind while you were talking was the idea that, and I must say I'm guilty of it, is the idea that like the overeating to sort of stuff and take away some of the anxiety, or if you're experiencing sort of depression and pain, in your heart and those sort of things. So that, that's been more difficult now, having this sort of like constantly surrounded, constantly at home, constantly surrounded by food. And
that's definitely something that I've seen more of, that more people are struggling with, right. With overeating, with kind of, eating as a way of like, just to, out of boredom, or, out of, stress. So
if someone is getting back to the depression side a little bit, when is it really important to seek help? Is it have to be at the time where I guess the best example, the extreme example is, thoughts of not wanting to live or contemplating suicide. That's the extreme.
Yes.
But when would someone really want to seek help, like professional help, versus just, my daily workout?
Well, I mean, I think, and I'm maybe biased here, but I think it's the first sign, like you said, like just like feeling like, what, I just don't feel like myself. Something doesn't feel right. I would recommend if possible, and it doesn't have to be, seeking, kind of seeking a therapist right away, but just, some sort of support, whether it's talking to your doctor or,
there's a couple kinds of therapy from my experiences over the years. And one of them was what they called it talk therapy. Or that maybe that's the way I thought about it. And where during the session, you're sort of self-discovering things. And then there was also people that advise things like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that was helping us cope. Are those sort of combined? How does that differ? And why are these tools and sort of sessions with a therapist recommended?
Yeah. So I think, all, they're all different kind of, therapeutic approaches. But I think, nowadays, we are, at least what I practice is the more, like CBT, the therapies that are a little more, I guess you'd say, active, in that
intervening,
yes, like helping. I think that that process of, helping, fostering insight and, self-discovery and self-understanding is important, but then also, okay, well, so then what do you
What
do
are we
with
going to do
that?
about it?
Yeah. And so that's where these therapies, like CBT and other more behavioral, treatments really, help with, okay, developing coping skills and figuring out what can I do to feel better, to function better, to kind of optimize my well-being.
Yeah. And I think that's was my frustration over the years was I sometimes would go in and it would just be it's like I was talking to my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm paying to talk to my girlfriend, which is great, but I can talk to my girlfriend for free. And I feel like this more sort of intervention, and it's not an intervention for alcohol, everyone. I'm just talking about an intervention and things that you're feeling, but coping mechanisms.
Yes.
And coping, while is great, I do think there's also sort of thriving mechanisms, things that help you thrive and do better. You don't have to be in a dire state to be, focusing on your mental health.
Absolutely. And I think, unfortunately, I think we're moving more in the direction of, recognizing that mental health care, taking care of our mental health is really just, fundamental, just like we, take care of our physical health and get a yearly physical. We really need, it's important to be mindful of how is my mental health. And because they're also very, interconnected, our, physical and mental health. And
are you noticing that the stigma of even the word mental health, which everyone, of course, equated with like, some sort of like loony bin that they had to go to, right? Or, what was the lobotomies and things like that?
Yeah,
are you noticing that it's changing, that it's coming down? I mean, I've been talking about it openly for many years, but it's kind of new.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It is kind of new, and I think it is changing, and there's more just acceptance of we're all human. We're all human. We all have stress, and and I think we have more stress than ever nowadays with more sources of stress. Just look at social media and adolescence. How that alone is impacting mental health. So. And now we have a global pandemic. We've never had that before. So,
let's just add it to the mix.
Yeah.
For mothers that are, for mothers or fathers that have kids, and this has been probably the most brutal on them. I'm sure there are statistics around it. I don't have them in front of me, but that kids are having all kinds of issues, all types of things going on. And I can just give you a couple from my own son, who's 6. Who seems to be extremely happy in the home, but not happy out of the home, doesn't want to go outside, has become more sort of, let's just never leave the home. I'm so happy, to a germaphobe, total germaphobe, and sort of created lots of anxieties around it. And that's just my son. Like I know, I've spoken to other moms that have lots of other things.
Yes.
What advice can you give to moms that are questioning, when your child needs help, and is it different than them going to seek their own help for themselves? Does that make sense?
But like the
resources, the process, and yeah.
I think yes and no. I think to start out, no. I mean, not much. I would say probably not much different is the process. Okay. I mean, maybe it's obviously. I actually maybe think it can be a little harder to navigate with children.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think it. I was thinking the first step, like talking to the pediatrician and but talking to the school. But I also am aware that especially with schools, different levels of resources and.
But
Nice.
I know the way that I have been handling this, although, it's still in process of searching resources,
Yeah.
is reaching out to the school. I
Mm-hmm.
reached out to his teacher, and there happens to be a school psychologist, social worker,
Uh-huh.
Purdy's in kindergarten, so we'd never met them in person yet. But we reached out there, who had great suggestions, because his stuff could be solved with occupational therapy, some of these
Oh,
anxieties and sensory disorder stuff. So we reached out
yes.
there, and I think you're right. I think your pediatrician should be your first line of contact.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the things that I have found, and younger kids are different, that there's, books that I've been reading that they gave me resources. But I
Mm-hmm.
think professional help means not, it's not, shouldn't be stigmatized. It's actually should be thought of as just like a professional friend on the other end, helping
Yes.
them cope through all this stuff. Because do you
Yeah.
find that like kids just don't share the same information with their parents that they may share with um, their psychologist?
Right. I think they don't have the even the like ability, like the verbal or the, ability to express exactly what's going on with them. And so I think, right,
Mhm.
professionals are able to, they have their ways of assessing, things.
Seeing through the muck.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think we're as parents,
Yeah.
right? We're not experts in everything. And so we're not, taught how to, right. If our kid is struggling, we, don't always know the best, and way to help them. So yeah, getting that additional support and resources is
Yeah. I think it's,
important.
well, we'll definitely link to some resources that we discussed here today, because I think that, my goal is always connecting people with the resources,
Mm-hmm.
and how can we get people to get there quicker without having to like struggle with finding things is really
Yeah.
hard. And there's so much innovation out there going on that I feel
Mm-hmm.
like people can start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, my thing through this whole thing is not to ignore what's in front of us and not push it
Mm-hmm.
down, where it explodes too late.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I also think it's an opportunity, kind of I think, the silver lining, which it's become a little bit of a cliche, but I think, we're trying to look for them, and we
I
are
love it.
finding
Yeah,
some
let's
of
talk silver
them.
linings.
Yeah. But I think, sometimes exploring that and, maybe seeking out that help and, I think can lead to, yeah, just, we kind of deeper connections with, with our, just with ourself and, with our kids. And, yeah, so I think there's some
Yeah.
positive
Have you heard from
stuff
some
there.
people how they've how some of these silver linings have manifested? Like some examples?
Mm-hmm. Not having to do the commute, obviously those,
Yes.
or something like that. But, I think some people, like, just the more family time actually
Yeah.
has been a nice thing, more time with, working parents that work outside of the home, or,
Hmm.
time with kids.
Hmm.
It's kind of the, slower pace, kind of getting back in touch with, what's important.
Right.
Think, really having more time and space to focus on self-care and like mental
Yeah.
wellness.
Yeah.
So
Mental wellness should definitely be part of any self-care routine. If you think about self-care, it's absolutely, where your mind is at is probably the most important,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
So before we wrap up, um, what is one piece of advice that you would tell your 20-year-old self?
Oh. To have, don't worry so much about about the future and how it's going to turn out. It's yeah, focus on, one foot in front of the other and trying to do your
Hmm.
best. And yeah.
Yeah, not always be concerned about the next step. just sort of
Yes.
living it, and that it'll all sort of fall into place.
Yeah, yeah. And try to connect as much with others, I would say, along the way that you can, reach out to
Mhm.
others for support because you can't go it alone, or it's harder if you try to go it alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, how can people find you? Where can they find you on?
Yes. Yeah. So I actually have a website. It's
Hmm.
drerinjoyce.com, and that's drerinjoyce.com.
Okay.
So, and my, email and phone number is there. So, happy to, yeah, I offer, consultations.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, to see
And so
if,
you're doing a lot of virtual appointments right now.
yeah, I'm actually doing only virtual
Only virtual.
appointments.
Okay.
Yes. And like I said, I was doing it before the pandemic. So that was fortunate for me that it wasn't too big of an adjustment. But
Well, I think it's so great. I love the idea of accessibility. I think that
mhm,
has been one of the biggest silver linings has been the immediate shift to needing to be virtual
mhm,
and how much more we can get done and how much more we can have access to when we're just at our homes.
mhm,
I suggest everyone find someone
mhm,
to help through this and even beyond. I mean, once we start getting back into things, there's going to be some adjustment period for sure.
mhm.
I went out for my first lunch the other day, sat outside. I was like, I think it's been a year. Holy moly.
Yeah.
But I was one of the paranoid ones. So I cannot thank you enough, Dr. Joyce. This is, it's really an important discussion. I hope, women, I know you're sort of leading your families. And if you're single, you're leading yourself, which is
Mhm,
a lot of responsibility to make sure that you take care of that lovely, lovely mind of yours. So, and body. So,
mhm.
thank you so much for joining us today on Anti Aging Uncensored.
Thank you so much for having me.